The honourable member for his statement. Would you please, Honourable Komal Chand, would you speak now? You have the floor.
Comrade Speaker, allow me to congratulate you on your appointment to this high office as Speaker, and to follow the rest to express my condolences to Comrade Cathy Hughes on our recent bereavement. Comrade Speaker, I rise to make my contribution to the APNU AFC government's maiden budget, which continues the trend of growth in projected expenditure when compared to the previous year's budget. In the almost 3 hours and 45 minutes of Minister Vincent Jordan's presentation, I too am of the view that the government is not going to live up and deliver on many of the promises that were made to the electorate during the recent general and regional elections campaign. I must say, Comrade Speaker, that the length of the presentation is no substitute for the expectations, which certainly will be unfulfilled. Comrade Speaker, my contribution to these debates will reflect mainly on the sugar industry. The Minister of Finance in his budget address said, among other things, I quote, "The economic well-being of the sugar industry is critical to the protection of jobs and the growth of the economy, as well as the contributions it makes to GDP, exports, and foreign exchange," end of quote. Later he went on to say, and I quote again, "Whatever path the industry takes, it is vital for the sake of the national economy that it remains viable and able to compete in an increasingly competitive and volatile global market." Indeed, Comrade Speaker, our sugar industry is deeply rooted in our society, and it continues to be one of the main pillars of our country's economy. The minister correctly recognized this. I recall some years ago, when the then sugar factory and cultivation of Versailles and Conard Estate were abruptly closed, there were severe consequences for the field and factory workers, despite the absorption of a small number of them in the employ of Wales Estate and Versailles Dairy Farm. I draw attention to this experience to remind us of the disruption and harsh results that await workers and their families if this industry is not safeguarded. I've expressed before, and do so again, that the sugar industry in the past has confronted very difficult challenges, and it has demonstrated its resilience in rising again and again. I am confident it will do so again. Despite the challenges in past times, whether under private ownership or in the post-nationalization period, whether under the respective PPP and PNC governments, the industry was supported and overcame its difficulties, and it thrived. The industry was supported, I want to repeat, and overcame its difficulties, and it thrived. And when it thrived, the records will show it made a substantial contribution to our economy and national life generally. Comrade Speaker, I do not think I have to belabor the point of the importance and of the contribution of this industry to our country during colonial times and also since our independence 49 years ago. All the previous heads of state have acknowledged this fact. The AFC APNU presidential candidate On the campaign trail, now President David Granger is reported to have said in reference to the sugar industry, and I quote, "There is no quick fix, but we are not going to dissolve the industry. It is too big to fail." End of quote. This is a positive approach to the industry in our given circumstances and a clear commitment of support at this time. It is within this context, I believe, the budget has allocated the sum of $12 billion to the sugar industry this year. This boost, on approval by this National Assembly, I urge should be promptly released to the ailing corporation to assist it to cover and defray its several expenditures. As is well known, the PPP has a consistent record of support of the industry, resulting over recent years in an improvement of the life and working condition of its workers. Now too, the PPPC would readily support assistance to the Sugar Corporation. Important too, Comrade Speaker, I recognize that the industry needs adequate resources to return it to a self-financing state and later to profitability. With this in mind, I reiterate the call that the sum of $4.7 billion arising from the EU sugar sector budget support program be transferred to the industry soon after its receipt to be used to improve the industry's capacity. Comrade Speaker, concern of the industry's future has emerged at this time. Will it be truncated, or will the current Commission of Inquiry, which is tasked to, and I quote, investigate and inquire into the state of cane cultivation, production and marketing of sugar, molasses and other byproducts, including power, end of quote, come up with realistic proposals to make the industry once again buoyant? Our concerns relate to a letter on the Commission's work in one of the newspapers, where the writer stated, among other things, and I quote, "Recently appointed chairman of the Guyana Sugar Corporation is of the opinion that the 200 million estate," he was referring, my quote, to Kelden Estate, and I continue the quote, "should be sold or used for other purposes," end of quote. Coupled with what the chairman of the board of Gaisuco said, I have sensed that the Minister of Finance in his budget address seemed to be uncertain of the part of the industry. Such statements do not provide a feeling of confidence in the industry's future. I should point out that the unions in the industry, as well as we on this side, do not agree with the divestment of the industry fully or partially. Indeed, Comrade Speaker, it will not even be economically sound in today's circumstances. Challenges as the situation is, I believe, with the commitment and adequate resources, they are quite capable Guyanese who, with the existing workforce, can surely turn around the industry. We insist that the industry as a state, we insist that this industry as a state entity has a positive future and its viability can be secured. The industry has great potentials which needs to be pursued diligently. Cogeneration is one such potential. In India, Brazil, and several other countries, electricity generation is the main earner for many factories. Such investment makes sense as they provide electricity at a reasonable cost while being a renewable source of energy, a real contribution not only to a green economy but above all to a green Guyana, very much in keeping with this year's budget theme. With the seeming and unwise abortion of the Amila Falls hydro project, the sugar industry wasteful bagasse can play a major role in supplementing our nation's energy production. Importantly, the Skeldon cogeneration facility is testimony of the value of cogeneration, and I welcome efforts for the facility to be returned as a corporation asset. I believe that the industry too should increase its output of direct consumption sugars for sale in the local, regional, and diaspora markets. The corporation has the possibility to have no less than 45,000 tons of value-added sugar available at this time for sale from its Blaemont and Enmore packaging plants annually. The prices of this type of sugar in those markets are by far greater than the price for raw sugar sold in the EU market. Refined sugar also has a big market within the CARICOM region, where as much as 200,000 tons of refined sugar is imported extra-regionally per annum for mainly use in the beverage and food industries. Other opportunities related to diversification also exist in the areas of alcohol, ethanol, and liquid sugar, which could be examined. In maximizing the opportunities from diversification, Comrade Speaker, GAISUCO should not fail to embrace the public-private partnership concept. Comrade Speaker, I believe that these practical proposals can be the basis and effectively serve to bolster the industry's revenue. Comrade Speaker, those who are obsessed in taking the denationalization route, let us be reminded of the industry's importance to our country. One, it employs the largest number of workers in the country, some 16,000 persons. Its factory facilitates the cane grown by 2,000 farmers. All told, about 120,000 Guyanese, whether as employees, cane farmers, suppliers of materials, service providers, and their dependents, benefit tangibly from the industry. 4, as the largest net foreign exchange earner, the industry accounts for a significant portion of our country's annual foreign exchange earnings. A significant proportion of the industry, 5, a significant proportion of the industry's revenue is circulated locally, thus enhancing all businesses. 6, the industry expansive drainage work throughout the sugar belt facilitate the drainage of many surrounding villages. 7, the yearly training of skilled graduates from the Port Moran School benefit many enterprises in our country. And 8, Comrade Speaker, what future our famous Demerara rum would have without our sugar industry?
Honourable member,
The
you have 7 minutes remaining.
Thank you. The industry's enormous reach and some of its interests spread throughout the length and breadth of Guyana. Maybe this is what prompted Prime Minister Nagamutu to say at the National Cane Farmers Conference on August 14, 2015, and I quote, "The focus is to make sugar work. We have too many workers who stand to lose with the collapse of the industry. So it is no question that we have to make it work." End of quote. I wish to emphasize, Comrade Speaker, that the sugar industry ought not to be seen only from the bottom line dollar position, but from a comprehensive macro and holistic position of what it contributes to our social life and the nation. The fact justifies our financial intervention, which is not unusual, as several developed and developing countries subsidize as necessary their vital agricultural industries. Comrade Speaker, fellow members of Parliament, as internet search on state support to sugar industry will bring up some really interesting information, and I quote, "Today, Brazil spends at least $2.5 billion on sugar subsidies. Brazil has repeatedly bailed out a domestic sugar industry that struggled despite all subsidies. Thailand, another major exporter of sugar, pursues similar policies, end of quote. Another statement says, and I quote, there are more than 100 countries produce sugar and subsidize its production and export, end of quote. Comrade, those who refer disparagingly to our sugar industry need to remember the sugar levy, which Gaisuka for 2 decades between 1976 and 1996 forked out 286.49 million US or 58.73 billion in today's terms to the state as levy. Before the nationalization in 1976, a significant sum as the sugar levy was extracted too. Moreover, some 25 billion would have reached the government coffers arising from the EU sugar sector budget support, some of which is yet to reach the right place, the sugar industry. Comrade Speaker, comrades, we should not be short-sighted and go for unsung solutions and support miniaturizing or downsizing our sugar industry. Instead, as Gandhis, let us seek to save it and let us build on the economic foundation that was created especially over the past 23 years. Region 3, Comrade Speaker.
Honourable Member, you have 3 minutes more.
Comrade Speaker, as a regional member of Parliament representing Region 3, it will be remiss of me should I not reflect on this important region. I must express my disappointment that the region, which is the third most populous in our country, boasting some 107,416 residents, had at its capital program unnecessarily curtailed this year. According to the estimate presented, approximately 202 million was allotted for this purpose. This is a significant decline from the Regional Democratic Council's revised budget in June of 306 million. Instead, the dramatic cut would tremendously hamper the region's capital work and prevent it from adequately fulfilling the demands of many residents. Due to this reduction, we can expect to see deterioration of our roads, bridges, and in the health sector, purchases of important medical equipment will be affected. This slash will also affect progress in Region 3. I must mention, Comrade Speaker, the state of the main access bridge to potential housing scheme, which collapsed in May this year. I understand that a resident petition seeking the construction of a new bridge was sent to the Minister of Public Infrastructure. I wish to take the opportunity to urge a responsible minister to heed this request and to ensure the necessary funding to have a new bridge constructed as soon as possible. I also wish to request the immediate attention through remedial work be executed on the roads along the west bank of Demerara, including the 2 canals polar. I urge the government to work towards the complete rehabilitation of the entire west bank Demerara road through the follow-up work that has already been done by the PP Civic. Comrade Speaker, over the years, like Region 3, has economic expansion and growth resulting in a robust and thriving economy. This is due to the work of the Regional Democratic Council and the encouragement and inputs of the PPP administration. This is a trend that should continue. I, like other citizens of that region, would remain alert to ensure the gains made thus far in raising the people's living standard do not unravel due to neglect and for whatever reason. In conclusion, Comrade Speaker, before I end my contribution, Comrade Speaker, contribution, allow me to comment on the old age pension issue, which was also referred to by my many colleagues.
You have 1 minute to wrap up.
Let me just say this important point. I am very despondent and displeased that the government has indulged in a give-and-take approach. This is not any new approach. This is reminiscent of the age-old capitalist trickery. What appears to be an increase in the layman's calculation represents instead a shortfall of $1,333 every month for every pensioner. if we take into account the promised 15,000 and the withdrawal of electricity and water subsidies. Come on, Speaker, just a few lines more. At the beginning of my contribution, the budget addressed Dolong is very short on fulfillment of promises to the Guyanese people. I will skip a little piece, Mr. Speaker. Already certain tasks confront us. Our important task being to ensure the return of democratic elections. A task, if not achieved, will almost certainly affect our national unity, our prestige abroad, our development performance, and our dignity as a people. Last few lines. Mr. Speaker, I look forward that this new parliament will take the necessary steps to correct our democratic deficit and set about on a new independent course of progress and prosperity. Thank you.
Thank you. I thank the honourable member.